Hey guys, what's up? Unrested here, and I apologize. This week I made zero videos until today, this weekend, and that is mostly because it's the holidays, and mostly because this has actually been a pretty hard year. As being a year in review with this video, I guess that's what I'll go ahead and do. This was the year of the sheep, which is actually my birth year. I was born in 1979, and I am a sheep on the Japanese calendar or zodiac or whatever you want to call it. I guess really actually a Chinese zodiac if you think about it. And this is supposed to be the year of the sheep, and I am a sheep. And it was a bad year. There's no if and or buts about it. This was a bad year for Unrested. This was a pretty rough one. Oh, where to even begin with everything that went down this year? Mostly stuff happening in my own personal life. It started at the very beginning of the year with my job just going sideways, and being hell to work at. Pretty much everything from power harassment to, I guess, just people not feeling like they're in a position that they want to be, like people who think that they should be managers acting like managers when they've never been made into managers, dealing with that at my job, and then dealing with a lot of backstabbing to the point that I actually had to leave the job eventually because I just got so frustrated with the whole situation. But that wasn't an easy thing to do. I'd already been there for 3 years. I was actually enjoying the job quite a bit every year before. I was pretty well settled in, and that was a pretty major movement to make at this point in my life. I'm 36 years old. It's not like when I was, in college and could switch from job to job. I don't really like to do that anymore. So I guess the good that did come of that was that I found a better job, and the people at my new job are awesome in comparison. I mean, they treat me great. I actually, they treat me so good at my new job that I look back at my old job and can't believe I put up with that bullshit. That's the most amazing thing. I think some of us go through this kind of thing when we leave a job and go to another job, or we leave a relationship and go to another relationship. We can't believe with how long we put up with how bad that last relationship or job was. Isn't that an amazing, amazing thing? Like how adaptive the human mind and body become to these things. How we change who we are and what we are and how we handle things just so we can progressively acclimate ourselves to whatever the situation is, even to the point that sometimes we end up ignoring the fact that we're literally being tortured by the place or the person that we're with. It's pretty insane. I mean, the human mind and the human body are an incredible thing, and sometimes that works to our advantage, and sometimes that works to our disadvantage. I would say a little bit of both when it comes to these kind of situations, because it's great that it can help you endure and get yourself through these tough times, because let's not, sugarcoat things. Tough times come throughout in our entire life. There's hills and valleys as long as you're going to live. Um, but at the same time, sometimes become too complacent with these adaptive measures that our body takes. And I feel like if you yourself are put in a situation like that, if you are right now in a job that you hate or a relationship that you hate, or you feel is any which way abusive, you should either number one, before the end of this year, confront it, or number two, by the end of this year, leave it. My the best advice I can give you: life is too short. Get out of either one of those if you are in them, and find a new one, or don't find one at all. See if you can just take a break. Um, and give yourself some time to heal, man, in every which way possible, mentally, physically. Um, I'm literally still recovering from having gone through how crap that job was. On top of it, right after that, or I should say during that, kind of as I was making a segue from one job to the other, I took on taking care of my uh, nephew. And I've told this story already, I ranted about it. And we made a deal with my sister-in-law, whose mom at the time, my mother-in-law, had currently been watching my nephew, my sister-in-law's son. I hope this is all making sense. And she needed to go to the hospital and get hip surgery, then stay in the hospital and recover for 2 months. So during those 2 months, we agreed to take care of her son at our house. We moved him into our house fully with, getting a futon for him, moving all his clothes in here, his books, his schedule for school and everything, making sure he got to his classes, etc., etc., because his mom works pretty long hours. not going to deny that. She is a hard worker and works hard, and um, daily works as a CEO. I'll put it that way. I don't want to say where or what she does, but she's a CEO. And so she makes a good buck, but at the same time, it takes her away from her job. It takes her away from home quite a bit. Her job takes her away from home quite a bit. So she doesn't have the time after work to care for her son when he comes home from school because she doesn't herself get off of work until very late. So we made a deal with her that we would take care of him during that time. We did not ask for any money. My wife and I did not ask for any sort of, I guess, coverage as far as anything to take care of him, as far as like paying for his food or anything like that. We just decided we would do that as, their family. Your duty is to take care of your family. So that's what we felt like it was our duty to do. And that's what we did. We took care of him for those 2 months. So during that time, before he had moved in with us, he had been doing quite bad in school. I mean, like failing hardcore, as in he had 48 kids in his class and he was ranked number 48. And yes, they do post stuff like that in Japanese schools. They let you know what rank you are. And he is a junior high school student. And he was number 48, which is bad because that means you are not really set up to go to a very good high school when you are going to take the entrance exams at the next level of your education in Japan. So we actually started to get him up to speed on a lot of stuff to the point that we found out things that he was really struggling with, which as in his kanji reading level was way below par. I mean, he was on an elementary school level of reading kanji. It was nowhere close to junior high school. He could barely read his science book, barely read his history book. His English homework was just, I mean, he couldn't spell words like one or plate or things like that. Like he just would like randomly put letters together and hope he got it right. So I worked with him quite a bit on the English to get him better at that. My wife, of course, worked with him on the kanji and everything because there's no point in having a gaijin teach you kanji, especially one that can't write it like me. And he started to get slowly better and better. His grades started to slowly progress into a better realm. For example, he got an 80 on an English test after studying with me, which is one of the highest grades he's ever gotten in his life almost. And then with my wife too, he got some of the highest grades he had ever gotten on those tests. He was literally above passing, which was a first for him in his life. I don't know if you know, but the way the school system works in Japan, there is no failing a grade in elementary school. So he's never been held behind or anything like that for doing bad in the past. He just did bad and continued on. So this started to show. His teachers started to notice, his juku, which is cram school, started to notice, and his mom started to notice. So, and his grandmother, who finally came home, my mother-in-law, started to notice. And so his mom, my sister-in-law, called us up and was like, look, I've noticed he's gotten way better, and it's because he's living with you, and I'm wondering, would it be okay if he lived with you for the next 3 years that he went through junior high school? Yes, 3 years. 3 years. You didn't hear that wrong. Not 3 months, 3 years. Junior high school covers about 3 years in Japan. And then you move on to high school. And so we talked about it. My wife and I talked about it. I was like, that is a huge amount to take on. First of all, while my wife was studying with him during this time, we were both working full time. So we're literally coming home from that and then taking care of two very small children, 3 and 4 years old, now 3 and 5. Actually, my son just had his birthday. And then at about 8:30, finally getting to studying with him, and we ended up not going to bed till almost as late as like 1 or 2 a.m. every night, and waking up at 6 a.m. to start the whole process over. And it was starting to take a toll on us, and I was like, look, if you want to do that, that's cool. I understand. She's your sister. You want to take care of your nephew. I'm not going to tell you no. But what I am going to tell you is that you need to let her know that you need to be compensated so that you can quit one of your jobs, because she's already working. She works full time, but she works multiple different companies to make a full-time list for the schedule of the week. And I said, you need to pull one of those off your schedule. You need to quit one of those companies so that you're only working, a smaller fraction of the hours, so that the more time to recover for yourself, to study with your nephew, etc., etc. You understand why. And I said, if you're going to do that, then of course we make less money, and we shouldn't be making less money because we're taking care of her kid. We should be balanced out with the same amount of money. We're making a sacrifice for her kid. She can make a sacrifice financially for us for quitting one of our jobs. And so she was like, yeah, that seems pretty reasonable. That seems pretty balanced. Ran it past my sister-in-law, and she would have none of it. She at first said, the first time we asked her, she said, let me think about it. we're like, all right, 2 months are almost up. So at the end of these 2 months, you know, I think at that point we had like another, I don't know, we were 2 or 3 weeks into it. So we still had another 80 days or so for her to decide. No, I'm sorry, not 80 days. That'd be 70 days, 70 days or so to decide. No, that still doesn't make sense. Anyway, I'm bad with math. Have you noticed that yet? That's why I didn't teach the math part of the teaching for my nephew. So anyway, we got through those 2 months. By the end of it, we wanted an answer. And, it was okay if the answer was no, I don't want to pay it. We would just send them back home. And the agreed amount of time of 2 months would be over. And that's it. So be it. That's fine with me. But if she said yes, I was more than happy and willing to take on my nephew into my house, just as long as my wife was compensated and able to quit one of her jobs. I did not want to see her worked to death and then made to study with my nephew who had a lot of catching up to do. I mean, a lot. Still a lot. Forever a lot. Because he was so far behind. And my sister-in-law still wasn't having it, so she said, no, I haven't made up my mind. You're not giving me enough time to think about it. And we're like, how much time is it going to take? She's like, I need like another 2 or 3 months to figure this out. And we're like, okay, so in the meantime, can you compensate us while you're thinking this out? And she's like, no, that's not another thing I've made my mind up about. I'll make my decision after you take care of him for another 2 to 3 months. And then I was like, no, that wasn't the agreed upon amount of time. It was actually just 2 months. And we said if you didn't come to a decision at that point, it was fine, but that we were going to send him back home, which we then did, and she became furious. She told her son that we were abandoning him and kicking him out of our house, which was not the agreed upon a thing at all. It was, I mean, even he said to us, he was like, wait, didn't you guys only say I was only staying for 2 months? And we're like, yeah, I mean, we're just literally ending the 2 months that we agreed upon. And he's like, yeah, I understand that. Don't worry about what my mom says. So even he was taking our side on this. Even he saw that he was being lied to by his own mother. Since then, she has, I guess, kind of an update to the whole story because I've done a video on this before. Since then, she has completely, I guess, blacklisted us from her family, from her side of the family. She refuses to talk to her own sister, my wife. She, of course, refuses to talk to me, which is fine. I don't give a fuck. And she has gone so far as to not invite us to go to the memorial for her husband who died. He died many years ago, almost 13 years ago now, which we were always annually invited to it. I mean, it's a family. The way, I don't know if you guys understand the way these things work is you go every year to remember that person, or every certain amount of years. Like sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 3. It's all these different odd amounts depending on what your family traditionally does. She didn't invite us, which is fine. If she doesn't want to invite us, that's cool. But when people asked why we weren't there, she told them that we were too busy to come, that we had said that we didn't want to come. So it's okay if you don't want to invite us, that's fine. I don't care. I don't feel like, I mean, quite honestly, those things are pretty boring. But don't lie about why I didn't come. Don't make up a reason of why I didn't come. Don't say that it was my choice that I was invited and was like, no, I'm too busy. I don't have time for your stupid dead husband. I didn't do anything like that. And that's what she made it sound like. So she's now going out of her way to kind of, I guess, talk trash. The good thing to know is that really people that she has tried to complain to about this situation have actually taken our side. From what we've heard from local friends and family, she'll be like, yes, Scott and his wife are such a jerk. My sister is such a jerk. They didn't take care of my kid when I asked them to. And they're like, wait. Listen to that sentence right there. You just said your kid. You're talking about your kid, right? Not their kid, right? And she's like, yeah, I mean my son. And they're like, yeah, exactly, your son. So, I mean, isn't that your job? And if someone was going to take care of them, were you going to pay them? And she's all like, And they're like, yeah, I don't know if anybody's told you before, but I mean, your son's pretty difficult to take care of. He's got a lot of, stuff to catch up on. He's kind of an undisciplined kid. If I were to do that, for example, like the people are saying this that are, talking to her about her situation, they're like, just to let you know, if I were to do that, I would ask for a huge sum of money. And like, they're asking for like crazy amounts of money. Like, I would ask like 3,000 a month or 5,000 a month. And that wasn't even close to what we were asking for. That's like an absurd amount in my mind. I mean, we would literally be asking for enough to cover the expenses of having the kid in our house and the expenses of what my wife made at the jobs that she quit, and no more, no less. We weren't asking for some exorbitant fee. So that's an update on that situation. Actually, I saw quite a few people did ask me what was going on with that situation. So there you go. I hope that kind of updates you and lets you know. And this year's just continued to be bad. I got a copyright strike on my channel that I had to fight. It was unjustly put against me from List 25, a channel that did a video about weird things from Japan. Everything in that video almost was taken out of a book called Funny Inventions by this guy he's a Japanese inventor who literally goes out of his way to make crazy, funny inventions. None of them does he really take serious. Once in a while they get picked up because they actually work out pretty well, but for the most part he invents stuff just to be funny. For example, there's one invention he has, it's a giant it's called the ramen bib, and it looks like a giant flower, and you put it around your head, so your head looks like a giant flower, so that when you slurp your noodles, and this does happen, when they snap against your lips and the juices pop out, nothing gets on your white, salaryman suit shirt, I should say, or your white blouse if you're an office lady. I mean, it's an actual invention, and I mean, you can't purchase it anywhere, you can't buy it, but he holds the patent to it, and he made a book about all these funny patents he owns. And they just found a clip art from that book and just decided to say, hey, this whole video is about crazy shit in Japan, and none of the stuff in there is actually sold in Japan, almost none of it. One big argument a lot of people get into, they're like, panties are sold in vending machines in Japan, which they're getting vending machines confused with what's called gacha gacha or capsule machines, in which case, yeah, I guess if you're going to include capsule machines, then a lot of weird shit is sold in Japan, but those are mostly rotating around the porn industry and anime and manga industry, so they sell very unique items connected to those industries. They are not vending machines in the sense of like how you would see a Coke drop out or food drop out of a vending machine. They are capsule machines, which if you want to count those in America too, yeah, then America's got some really weird capsule machines. I mean, we've got vending machines for little homies then, if you want to include gotcha gotcha and capsule machines. Think about how that doesn't make sense. I mean, we have vending machines for tampons and condoms in bathrooms, if you want to count those as vending machines. It's I guess maybe it could be broken down to an argument of semantics. Nonetheless, I called out everything that I thought was wrong with this video. For example, they said capsule hotels are only a Japanese invention, which actually capsule hotels exist in China and Russia and other parts of the world. They're not only Japanese. So I got a copyright strike because they said I was using, what was their reasoning? It was something like I was using their icon in my video, which I did show their video and able to comment on it, but I'm green screened over top of the video, which if you want to see it, the video's back up now. And that is totally fair use. I brought it, of course, back. I contended it. I said, no, this is not right. This is a false copyright strike. Of course, Japan's YouTube's legal department took a look at it right away and said, yeah, this is you making your own video because you're overlapping your own video over top of it to comment on this other video. I'm not literally playing it word for word, sentence for sentence, music for music, and claiming it as my own. And that would actually be a copyright strike. I would, if I'm throwing another video up on my channel, taking full claim for it and getting the money from it, yeah. And the thing is, if people want to get the money from those videos, like if they want to claim it, like as far as getting the revenue from it, I never even have a problem with that. I really don't care. They can do that. That's totally cool. If they want to copyright strike it and take it down so people can't watch it, that's when I get pissed because I work really hard on those videos. Anybody who's done a little bit of green screening understands how much work you put into it after you've green screened yourself over something and matched up the timing and the coloring and all those different things. So those are just 3 examples of some pretty hard things I went through this year. I mean, there was more. There was so much more. I had a friend deported this year. He used to be a good friend. He's not really a friend anymore. He let his life go to hell in Japan. I did a whole video on that and the history of unrest. That ended at the end of this year. That ended at the beginning of this year. Him being deported and finishing his court sentences and stuff like that. My grandmother died this year. On top of that, my grandmother was 101. Yes, she was an American who was 101. And that is my English lesson. I have to go. So I'm going to end the video here. Maybe I'll do an update later, but thanks so much for listening, guys. Have a good one. I'm Unrested.